Hey guys, Dr. Pedram back with Dr. Sara, here to talk about some fun stuff today. Hi Sara, how are you?
Hey Pedram, good to see you. Hi everybody.
Hi. So today I think we have on our list to talk about thyroid and its complicating effects on weight loss and why why people may not be getting the results they want to get.
Definitely talking about that. I mean, I feel like so many people struggle with their weight and maybe have thyroid issues or have problems with endocrine disruptors. Please don't let your eyes glaze over. And they don't know it. So I want to talk about that today. I think that's a really important topic. We've got some juicy science on this, right, Pedram?
That's right. So our job is to take all the geek science and try to break it into human speak here. So,
right.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of research coming out on this that shows that it's basically our toxicity that might be leading to our inability to lose weight. And what that means is really kind of where the rubber hits the road for us, because everyone's, picking up weight, everyone's not feeling as well, everyone's feeling lethargic. And the fact of the matter is we live in a toxic world. So, what are we going to do about it, and how can we look at this is really, what I'd like to hopefully focus on today.
Definitely. I think solutions are so important, and I love that we have this time to translate the science for people so that they can make it actionable. And I also, I'm a bit of a glass half full type of a person. I wanted to say first that even though we're talking about endocrine disruptors today and how they can muck with your thyroid and your metabolism, I also think it's important to say there's some ways that the environment actually loves us up. Right? There's some ways that the environment mucks us up and loves us up. And the loving us up, I just wanted to mention this concept of grounding. So when you walk on the beach, this has actually been shown to help you with your hormone balance. So I wanted to maybe say that quickly before we get into how these endocrine disruptors cause problems for people.
Yeah, no, I love that, because everything's so doom and gloom in our world, and we're all going to go up in smoke. And there are ways to reverse a lot of this stuff. There are ways to mitigate it, and well, the basic science that we're kind of looking at, we're distilling about 7 articles here. And for you people who like to look at the articles, we're going to reference them for you so you can go back and look at all that stuff. But it's essentially the fat cells in our body store the toxins to protect us. And then as we start losing weight, these toxins get released into our bloodstream, and then there's some evidence to suggest that then starts to disrupt different hormones, including the thyroid hormones, which then signals our body, hey, go get more fat, get some weight back on so we can get this junk out of the streets and put into the prisons again. And so...
Stay in the prison.
Yeah, exactly. Or rehab the prison or something, but not on the streets, please. And that's really what's happening is we have this junk that the pesticides and the chemicals, all the stuff that's out there in our world, which is obviously better living through chemistry, has kind of hit us in the wrong way.
Yes, it's like we're crash test dummies for the chemical industry. And, I don't want to get all shrill and soapboxy about this, but you made such a good point about how we need to put these back in the prison, and we need prison reform. I think that's such a beautiful point. We'll explain what we mean by this in a moment, because basically these endocrine disruptors get stored in your fat. And then the sad part is when you lose weight, they come out of prison. So that's what we're going to talk about today, some of the science on this. And then I also think it's important to realize we're talking about pesticides, we're talking about some of these plastics that you get exposed to, but we're also talking about the sofa in your living room. We're talking about your mattress. So the sofa in your living room has flame retardants in it. Your mattress has flame retardants unless you have an organic mattress. Otherwise, you're getting exposed to things that disrupt your thyroid, and that's what we're talking about today. And maybe, Pedram, if I could back up for just a moment, just to say a quick thing about the thyroid, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so as you know, my first book is about women and their hormones, and I promise I'm going to be either writing a book or an app for men next time. So
thank you.
When it comes to women and their thyroid, we know that women are 15 times more affected by thyroid problems than men. So women are especially affected, but men are certainly not immune. And it's important to understand what does the thyroid do? So it's this lovely little gland in your neck. It's the biggest endocrine gland in your body. And it's in charge of a couple of things. Well, actually about 300, but I'll just name the top 3. It's in charge of your weight, your metabolism, how you burn calories, number 1. Number 2, it's in charge of your mood. And number 3, it's in charge of your energy. So you want this thyroid to be on your side, working for you, not against you. Anything you want to add to that, Pedram?
No, those are the big 3. I mean, there's a lot that goes into how the thyroid works, and I can't tell you how many people drag themselves into our clinics every day, on 6 cups of coffee a day, not wondering why they're not feeling better. And it's the first thing you look at is your thyroid on the ground? What's happening? And then the only major component I see with that's kind of a can of worms to open up here is we're starting to see a lot of thyroid problems coming from gluten intolerance and food allergies and sensitivities that we hadn't really hadn't noticed before or hadn't really been a problem before, but it's surging. And so what you eat could be affecting your thyroid just as much as your exposure to chemical toxins and all the things that are out there challenging us.
That's right. I think that's such an important point. We're talking a bit today about these chemicals, these endocrine disruptors that are undermining your best efforts if you're trying to lose weight. But it's important to put it in context that the way that you eat, move, think, and supplement is a big part of how your thyroid is functioning. It's a big part of your health. It's a big part of your vitality, right, Pedram?
That's right. Running around the block with that banner for a while.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's in how we live. Right, it's how we live now. Unfortunately, because of the way the world is kind of stacked up right now, supplementation is something that's a big part of it. Because our bodies like to detox. Our bodies are designed to detox, but they could use all the help they can get. And us getting up every morning, slamming that alarm snooze thing, and stumbling through our days and barely having time to rest and recover.
Yes.
Let alone to detox has been a challenge, and that's why certain supplements are indicated for this kind of stuff. But in an ideal universe, I know Sarah, you'd agree with me on this. Is first of all, you got to cut your exposure to the stuff. So what you were saying, the flame retardants, the outgassing of stuff, that new car smell, all these things that we've gotten used to. That are just gross. They're bad for us, and we're trying to figure out a way to mitigate those losses to kind of stand off from some of that exposure. And so good, clean, healthy living, I think, is the baseline of our springboard into this unwind of what we're talking about here. Because you can detox all you want. If you're retoxing more than you're detoxing, good luck with that.
Right. It's a simple equation in some ways, right? You want to make sure that you are not retoxing more than you're detoxing. I think that's a beautiful soundbite. I think we need to make sure you get credit for that, Pedram. And, I want to get into this first study about how when people lose weight, they actually are releasing these toxins back in their system. That's this whole concept that you were alluding to about these nasty guys getting out of prison. And the cool part that we're going to get to in a moment is you can do something about this. So we've got some science on what you can do, and it's as simple as taking a probiotic, which has been proven to reduce absorption of one of these thyroid disruptors, something called bisphenol A, BPA. But maybe we should go to that first study, Pedram. Should we go to that first one and just talk about how, this is like, to me, it's like adding insult to injury. For people who are charged and they are trying to lose weight and they're, maybe they're obese or they're overweight and they're trying to get some pounds off. What I find so frustrating for them is when they have this initial progress and then they either hit a plateau or they just feel like no matter what they try, nothing is working. So that's what I feel like this first study from 2010 addresses. Would you agree with that, Pedram?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're looking at what PCBs and organochlorides and basically pesticide use, and a lot of this stuff, guys, happened back in the 60s and 70s when, you know, it was the wild, wild west of chemical, you know, our chemical dominance, and we've figured out this nature thing, and we've cracked the code. Now we'll just create a pill for an ill or a chemical for anything. And so what's happening is us trying to get this stuff out of people's systems has proven to be very challenging. And the body, I mean, think about it. Millions of years of human evolution in the natural environment, and then 50 to 100 years of all of a sudden a bunch of chemicals that the body / nature have not ever known about. And so they're added to this perfectly running homeostatic system of saying, okay, this is a bug out, this is friend or foe. Now we have all these things that the body's just scratching its head saying, I don't even know what to do with this. And so the genius of our systems is that we've figured out ways to offset some of this stuff, you know, tie it into a fat cell, put it away for a rainy day until we figure out how to get it out. Yes. But at the end of the day, you got to pay the piper. So we got to figure out how to actually get these things out of the system. And I think we could talk about some of the supplements and the natural remedies to do so on this. But again, you know, my stance on this is first things first, limit your exposure. Once that's done, and that includes, you know, some of these deodorants. You're using your fancy Italian cologne. The new car smell. All the things that we may or may not have slip under our radar because we've just been using them on a day-to-day basis. You know, one of my nutritionists says, you know, look at as far as foods go, he says, look, if it has a label, don't eat it, right? And my thing with you know, personal hygiene substances is really just look at it, and if there's anything on that thing that you can't pronounce, walk away, right?
Amen. I think that's such good advice, and you're absolutely right. I do think that the first part here is to limit exposure. And I, you know, as an integrative physician, functional medicine practitioner like you, Pedram, I'm very focused on certain hormones. You know, my first book is about what I call your hormonal Charlie's Angels, your thyroid, your estrogen, and cortisol. And for men, I call it the three amigos, your thyroid, your testosterone, and your cortisol. So we're talking today about the thyroid, and I can tell you when it comes to estrogen, there's more than 700 known xenoestrogens, so endocrine disruptors that harm the estrogen levels in your body and are linked to infertility and breast cancer, other problems like that. We're talking about a lesser known disruptor today, the thyroid disruptors. I don't actually know the total number that's proven right now with the thyroid disruptors, but I love this idea of limiting exposure, and I want to even get more granular on that. So I alluded before to the fact that flame retardants are a very well-known thyroid disruptor. And one thing you can do is you can get an organic mattress. That's one of the best things I recommend. I imagine for many of you that you don't sit on your sofa in your living room for as many hours as you lie on your mattress. And when I started learning about thyroid disruptors, I hauled butt to my local organic futon shop, and I bought a mattress. Honestly, it was less expensive than the mattress I had before, the one that was filling me with flame retardants. So the interesting thing, Pedram, I don't know what happens outside of the state of California, but in the state of California, at least when I got my mattress, you had to have a doctor's prescription to get an organic mattress because of the severe risk of cutting out the flame retardants, you know, and how you're going to die in a fire because you have an organic mattress. I don't know if that's true outside of the state of California. I hope people will comment on this and, like, you know, fill us in. I want you to go buy an organic mattress and find out, and then share your feedback with us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, and we could kind of get into the story of this flame retardant lobby and how, you know, someone decided that they're going to, you know, and I think you have. Why don't you tell the story real quick, because it's a good one. We'll do it on the quick, because I think it's pertinent to understand how some of these things have worked into our households, because it's kind of yucky.
how these endocrine disruptors have become part of our lives.
Well, no, just how the flame retardants have gotten into our thing. Because you told me this, and it made me scratch my head and just say that's amazing.
Well, so flame retardants, I mean, there's, as you can imagine, there's a big industry that are trying to pump flame retardants into every aspect of our lives, from those little outfits that babies wear, you know, the pajamas that have the feet, to our living room sofa, as I mentioned. Your car is just chock full of flame retardants. When you fly on an airplane, every single thing you come in contact with is just chock full of flame retardants. And I actually read this interesting story of a guy, I believe it was in National Geographic, where he did a body burden test. Now, you don't need to know all the details of science on this, but he did a test where a company, I think it was the Environmental Working Group, ran a body burden test on him, and he came back sky in flame retardants. And he was just like, what? He's someone who was super environmental. He was really careful about his exposure to plastics. And it turned out that his travel and the amount of exposure he had in airplanes was the #1 risk for why he was exposed to so many flame retardants. And, oh, by the way, I think his thyroid wasn't working so well. So I don't know if that's the story that you were thinking of, but did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, you know, on top of these flame retardants, you know, and let's just say, okay, so we're putting all these chemicals that we may or may not need. I mean, how many buildings are going up in fire right now, and how much of a problem is this? And I think the problem really came with the cigarette industry having to worry about putting things on fire, and so they came up with this, and then created a whole new kind of shop business out of flame retardants, which it's kind of like static cling, if you will. You create your own problem, and then you have yourself an industry. One of the things I was just looking at.
I love your analogies. Can I say static cling, prison? I love your analogies.
Thank you. I give you the analogy guy. Here's something we've been looking at, which just blows my mind. Is there was a study done in the UK where they were looking at plastics in the water, and they realized that there was just these microparticles of plastics everywhere. And they started studying ocean populations, finding like micronized plastic fragments in the water of all the oceans of all the world. And so they say, okay, this is crazy. Where's this coming from? And we started backlogging back into where this was coming from. And it turns out it's our washing machines in our houses, because all of the polyester fabric that we wash breaks into these micronized particles. They go out, and so they're finding plastic in fish. We're finding plastic in everything, and that's just the extent to which this chemical stuff has worked into our lives. I mean, I try to wear 100% cotton, everything, fair trade, this, that, and the other. It's hard. It's hard to find cool clothes even that are not polyester based in some way.
It's so true. I had this I did an experiment a couple years ago where I wore only organic clothes for 1 year. And I can tell you, I looked like a dork. Like, I did my best to try to find some hip happening clothes. And oh my gosh, it was not so pretty. Like, I had friends who were saying, can you just finish the experiment maybe after 6 months? Because this is not you.
I'm not having lunch with you.
Right. I mean, things are getting better, but I think a lot of people don't realize that your genes are so full of endocrine disruptors and heavy metals. It is part of what happens in China. And oh, by the way, the average American woman has 7 pairs of jeans. So I think you're making such an important point. And this idea about the runoff from our washing machines, I imagine dolphins are involved somehow. Are dolphins involved? I think I saw a study on dolphins, right?
Yeah, and these poor little dolphins are picking up. It's one of the few we got up here. These poor dolphins are picking up all this toxicity because it's getting into the oceans. And one of the things I'm looking at, one of the studies right now, is the effects of these toxins on T3 and the basal metabolic rate. And so what's happening is the resting metabolic rate on people is dropping, and effectively what's happening is you're toxic. The thyroid says, hey, slow down so we could get fat. And so we get fat, so it pulls the toxins out of the system. And so we're looking at these people that are poor responders to all these weight loss programs. And one of my good friends, Dr. Michael Yang, who's got a book coming out on this very subject, is, the whole point is you're not fat, you're toxic, right? And so, obesity and weight loss, are very implicated in this, as are all of the things that, you talk about with your hormone problems in your books. For me, I'm kind of a generalist. I look at everything. I mean, when movie Vitality is about looking at, overall concepts of lifestyle, and then drilling down with friends like you to say, okay, now let's talk about hormones, let's talk about weight loss, let's talk about this. But the real essence of this, the crux of this argument is, we've kind of departed from nature, and then all bets are off. So we don't know what all of these things are doing to our systems, and even the drugs that we take that are designed to be good for us. The fallout with some of the side effects has been catastrophic for many people, right? So I know people that take 3 drugs for the one drug that they were originally supposed to take just to deal with the fallout.
So true, so true. And I just. Your movie, Vitality, is about to be released. I'm so excited about Vitality. I've been very honored to be able to see it before your formal release, and I just want to encourage everybody to watch this film and share it with 10 people in your life once it comes out. It's so exciting, and I hope there's a link somewhere where people can actually do that. But I wanted to pick up on a couple things that you said that I think are so important. One is, I struggled with weight quite a bit when I was younger. I was always a little pudgy as a kid, and I think some of that was maybe due to endocrine issues and endocrine disruptors, because I can remember growing up in suburban Maryland, and I remember riding my bike when I was about 7 years old in the summer when they were spraying the foliage for mosquitoes, and I bet that was DDT, because it was around the time that DDT got banned. Shortly thereafter. But I think it's so important, as someone who struggled with my weight until I really figured out this hormone issue in my 30s, which was about 10 years ago. I think it's so important to realize that you want to look at the biology. You want to look at the biology because both men and women, but especially women, are vulnerable to this. When it comes to trying to find the right weight, and trying to develop an easeful relationship with your body and with your weight, we are so quick to go to blaming ourselves and feeling like the reason I can't lose weight or the reason why I'm a yo-yo with my weight is because of willpower. And so one of the really important messages that I feel like we have for everybody today is to understand that you want to look at the biology. I'm not taking people off the hook with the psychology and eating to soothe, especially if you learned that as a kid. But I think it's so important to look at the biology in parallel with the psychology. So I agree with this point about endocrine disruptors and how it can slow down your thyroid. And what's stunning to me is that I really believe we have an epidemic of slow thyroid. And I believe you also look at it this way, Pedram, that most conventional physicians are looking at the normal range when it comes to their thyroid. And I can tell you, I had 3 women this week and 1 man who came to see me and said, I have all the symptoms of low thyroid function. I asked my primary care doctor to run thyroid tests. He did them and he told me that they were fine. He patted me on the back. You're just getting older. That's just how it is.
Deal with it.
Right? I mean, don't you see that all the time?
There are so many people that wash up on the beaches of our kind of natural, forward-thinking clinics that have just been tossed and turned around by the system, because they're just, a lot of these docs, and we're working pretty aggressively to kind of retrain a lot of these docs to kind of see things in a more functional spectrum. But their training says, look, unless this is some sort of gross pathology or meets my criteria, get out of here. And that's no way to treat humans. I mean, if someone comes into your office complaining about something, it's obviously a problem. People have busy lives, so you got to listen. So
true. And I think another issue, and maybe we can talk about this at another date, because I've got about 27 of these topics that I want to do with you, Pedram. Another issue, I think, is that there's a problem with thyroid resistance. And we know that I think the next 10 years is actually going to be about thyroid resistance. And probably people who are listening know about insulin resistance, when your cells become numb to insulin. Insulin's a fat storage hormone, and so it as it rises, it makes you store fat no matter what you're doing. So just as with insulin resistance, you can have resistance to these other hormones, to thyroid, to cortisol, to estrogen, to progesterone. And so I think this is another important piece, that your labs may not always reflect what's happening with your thyroid. And this is so true when it comes to thyroid disruptors. So thyroid disruptors, if they're in prison, that's one thing. But if they're out of prison, they could be blocking your receptors, and you may have normal labs, but the thyroid disruptor might be slowing down your metabolism.
And so what, you have specialized tests to figure that out with people? And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, when I went through medical school, I think I'm a little bit older than you, Pedram. When I started at Harvard Medical School in 1989, the normal range for the thyroid, for TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, was considered to be 0.5 to 4.5. Do you remember those days, Pedram? And then actually some of these national endocrinology organizations have changed that range, thankfully, because they use the range for 95% of the population. And oh, by the way, about a third of the population is low in thyroid function, so that's not such a good measure. So if we use the optimal range, we know that it's much tighter than that. And even these conventional medicine organizations in endocrinology have tightened that range to 0.3 to 2.5 or 0.3 to 3.0. And what I find in my practice with men and women is that I even like it to be between 0.1 and 1.5. But I'm curious, do you have, we can't give medical advice, of course, to people who are listening to us without a full history and physical, but I'm just wondering if you have numbers that you use in your practice.
Right there with you, and what basically, for us, it's about how the patient comes in feeling. That's a first step is, how are you feeling? How are you living? How's your vitality, right? And then we'll take it from there. But for us, when I start seeing thyroid numbers jumping around, what we look at is, cortisol levels. We'll start looking at DHEA. We'll start looking at all the kind of baseline endocrine function, including gut dysbiosis, salivary IgA. I don't want to get too geeky in the terms here. Yeah, exactly.
Doing the happy dance.
Doing the happy dance. Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. It's like you cannot look. It's like if a child comes in and has a problem, first thing you do is go look at the family and see what's up in the household. It's not an isolated thing. And so we have to look at the family of hormones and say, what's going on here? What is this picture? And I'll tell you, 9 out of 10 times the picture is going to be different. The same two presentations, picture is going to be different because let's face it, you grew up in Maryland, I grew up in California. We had different exposure to different things. My parents might have, every time I got an ear infection as a kid, I'd get slapped with amoxicillin, right? So for me, it might be building the probiotics in my gut. For you, it might be, chelating out or detoxing out certain chemicals that you might have been exposed to. And I mean, these are just obvious random examples, but different strokes for different folks. And so for us, it's about taking a cold, hard look at the global picture and saying, now what? Okay, what do you need? And so I think this is a good time for us to kind of segue into, because I know we're kind of running lower on time here, is segue into solutions. We started with some doom and gloom and what's wrong with the world kind of thing. And so now, what would you do? I mean, I don't know if you're a fan of chelation. I know there's a lot of docs that have different opinions on chelation. What's yours for some of the heavy metals and all this stuff?
Well, I definitely think if you're high in heavy metals, I think the evidence is uneven. But when it comes, if we're talking about the thyroid, and honestly, it's a little hard for me to only focus on the thyroid, because just as you mentioned, you got to look at the whole neighborhood. And cortisol is the engine behind your thyroid. So you got to look at cortisol. All of these hormones crosstalk, the hormonal Charlie's Angels, the three amigos. But just to answer your question specifically about chelation, mercury is one of the heavy metals that I get the most concerned about in terms of the thyroid and being a thyroid disruptor. So I'm a big fan of people testing their mercury and finding out if this is a problem. And as you probably do in your practice, Pedram, what I find is that conventional physicians occasionally are willing to order a mercury test, and a lot of people want to use their insurance for this. You want to be a little careful, because if you are mercury toxic and your blood level comes back high, it's going to potentially impact your insurability in the future. Yeah. And I've one patient who's had to pay through the nose for insurance since she had a blood test done with her conventional doctor. Anyway, yeah. I think it's worthwhile to test outside of the system if you can afford that. And I'm a big fan of the needle movers. You know, what are like the really simple things you can do coming out of this conversation? So number one, I would say check out a lab called Mercout. I don't know if you use them, but Mercout is MERCOUT.com. And they allow you to take a questionnaire to see if mercury might be an issue for you as an endocrine disruptor of the thyroid, and order a test where it's a provoked test where you take a chelator and then you collect your urine for 2 hours. You send it off to a lab. It costs like $79. I totally think it's worth it,
dirt cheap,
especially if you have symptoms. So I'm a big fan of that when it comes to chelation. But do you want to say something more about chelation?
Yeah, you know, I think chelation is something that is sometimes overdone because, you know, there's a lot of people out there saying, you know, that we need to, you know, you need to do my $6,000 protocol to clean out your pipes and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of, you know, as much as the normal traditional medicine people are, you know, pushing their drugs, potions, and lotions, some of the natural people are pushing a lot of their protocols that might be a little excessive. I think that there's definitely a time and a place for chelation. If you've got mercury, you got to get that stuff out. Yes. And it's absolutely critical to look at, you know, the amount of tuna that's going into your body.
Yes.
You know, amalgam fillings, like all this stuff that we need to kind of just look at and say, okay, is there a holistic dentist around that could pull this thing out, and how would I mitigate my exposure to this so that I can safely get this out? Because it's not just about getting it out; it's about safely getting it out. I mean, if we go to the prison example, you don't just open the doors to the prison and just let out the inmates. You know, you escort them somewhere.
You got to have some rehab in there, right? For
That's
all
right.
of these endocrine disruptors. And I'm so glad you are making this practical, Pedram, because I can sometimes start talking about the science and get too excited. So I wanted to just mention a couple of things around mercury. I was mercury toxic.
Were you?
Back in 2006. And I just want to tell you, the way I got mercury toxic was not from fillings, because I don't have any amalgams. I don't have any metal fillings, which, by the way, are 50% mercury.
Mm-hmm.
What I have is a fondness for sashimi. And my medical office in 2006 was right next door to a Japanese restaurant, and I would go there once or twice a week and have sashimi. You know, I really love yellowtail. I love tuna, spicy tuna.
High protein, low guilt, wonderful, right?
I thought I was taking such good care of myself. I was limiting my carbohydrates. I was focused on the protein. I'd have a seaweed salad. Life was good.
Right.
I would go to Whole Foods and get, you know, one of their brown rice sushi things. I thought I was taking care of myself. And then lo and behold, I'm gaining weight. Actually, I had 2 kids in my 30s, and I had trouble losing the weight after I had my babies. And I was struggling with my mood. You know, I was not feeling like my glass half full type of a person. Mm-hmm. And I was also struggling with energy. My energy was really inconsistent. It wasn't high like it was when I was younger. And so on a whim, I actually tested my mercury levels and found that they were ridiculously high. Mm-hmm. And this is not just my experience. I live in the Bay Area. There's a woman, a physician, internist, conventional internist, who did a little experiment at her practice in San Francisco where she decided to just run mercury levels on all of her clients. And she found that somewhere around like 30 to 50% had elevated levels of mercury. And she wrote a book about it that I think is so important and interesting to read. So very few conventional physicians are going to think that way. And it's not that, we're blaming conventional physicians, because Pedram, you and I went through that training. It's not ignorance. It's more that you learn a different model. You just don't think about these things. And then on the other extreme, as you were describing, is the more natural practitioners who maybe are overstating the benefits of chelation. And I think what's so great about our conversation is that we're the middle path. Like we want to talk about the evidence with everybody and what makes sense, but we're not conventional. We're not, alternative woo-woo to the point where we're not talking about the evidence.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, the middle path is where it's just, let's be sensible about this. I'm not going to put away my Prius and start going with a horse-drawn buggy to work, and it's we live in a complicated world, and we just have to look at everything rationally and not so religiously. I mean, I think on both sides of the camp, it's like, well, I don't believe in herbs. What do you mean believe in herbs? And on the other side, it's like they believe everything is bad, and so you need to chelate to go crazy. And so for the benefit of the audience, that's the sensible, lovely people that we love talking to every single day, yay, hi, right, exactly, is, guys, I think the take-home story here is, one, clean up your act, right? Like, make sure you're not taking in any chemicals that you can avoid, in your life. If you do have, say the new car, you want to air it out considerably before you drive it and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and this is a rabbit hole in terms of what to do, because I mean, I could walk into any human's house in the Western world and point out 150 items that are carcinogenic and going to have endocrine disruptors and things that are going to mess up your health. And so the moral of the story is the world's got a lot of things stacked against us in that capacity. What we need to do is really kind of work against that, but also really enhance and optimize the body's function to be able to clean house and take care of itself. And I think that's where, that's the whole argument of vitality is, there's two ways to deal with it, is wait till you get sick and then try to cure it, through drugs and pills and potions. The other is to enhance your vitality so that your body can offset a lot of that stuff. And so, you kind of build up your force field, if you will. And so I'd love to hear from you in the couple minutes we have left here. What vitality enhancing practices can you recommend to people coming from your wonderful world of knowledge and expertise?
Oh, yes. Well, hats off to you. I totally agree. Just as in positive psychology, where we want to amplify what's working, I totally agree with this, that you want to amplify the innate intelligence of your body. So how do you do that? Well, I would say the place where you really focus is you start with your gut, just as you were describing earlier, Pedram. And what I love about making this actionable for people is that we have evidence that you can reduce thyroid disruptors by taking probiotics. I don't know anyone who gets sufficient probiotics from the foods that they're eating. Maybe there's someone in Japan that I don't know who's eating fermented soy and I don't know what else, that, natto, and they're getting enough. But people I know don't get enough. And they have too many antibiotics. They take an antibiotic when their cold lasts for more than 3 days, and it wipes out all the good stuff. So we need to do another session, I think, on the gut, Pedram. But
100%.
Suffice it to say that I want you to take a probiotic. Take a potent probiotic. Maybe, Pedram, you have some suggestions on that, but I don't even care what it is. I just want you to start on a probiotic, take it regularly. It's going to help you reduce your absorption of these thyroid disruptors. So I think that's a really important part. Another important part when it comes to your thyroid and amplifying the positive is to take a potent multivitamin. And let me just back up for one quick second on this. I learned that the reason why my thyroid wasn't working, wasn't loving me up and supporting me the way that I wanted to be supported, was first the mercury. So I had to get that mercury out of my system. And then second, I am low in copper. So in functional medicine, one of the things we look at, and I've written a lot about this in my book, The Hormone Cure, we look first and foremost at nutritional gaps that you might have. So I learned early on that I have a genetic tendency to not absorb copper from food. And so my copper is really low, and copper is essential for normal thyroid function. It's one of the important cofactors that helps you convert the storage thyroid hormone T4 into T3, which is the form of thyroid hormone that really loves you up and supports you. So just by taking a multivitamin that has copper, zinc, selenium, and also vitamin D, that is what I need to support my thyroid. So I would say those two things. Number one, probiotic. Number two, a potent multivitamin.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, the problem with the food is the depletion of the soil. The nutrients aren't getting in there, and there's a lot of things that we have to supplement now because the food isn't there. Now, on that note, I'm a big fan of community-supported agriculture. There's a lot of these organizations around that'll dump off a bucket of fresh, leafy green vegetables and things that will really stack your odds in this favor. So in terms of eating, lots of vegetables, different colored vegetables, leafy greens, and all that kind of stuff, but still take the potent multivitamin because, again, you have this much vitality and this much disease in the natural world. Now all of a sudden the disease and the chemicals are up here, so we have to really kind of stack up our odds here so we can meet it and then also deal with life's little stresses, getting that one phone call that all of a sudden puts us over the edge and stuff like that. So it's absolutely critically important. One thing to talk about on the probiotics is a lot of the studies that I've been reading is high dose, especially for people who need to re-inoculate. Some of the stuff suggests 400 billion microorganisms a day to re-inoculate. And so when people are taking a lot of these and what's happened is Big Pharma has now moved in and said, oh, we heard this is good, so we're going to come up with a product. 1 billion microorganisms in their pill. You could take 2, 3, 5, 10 of those a day. You're not even scratching the surface. So if you actually have gut dysbiosis, you get gassy after meals, your immune system's compromised, you might have some of these chemical toxicities. We're talking 100 billion and up a day. So there's only a couple companies out there that I know that are doing it. Ultimate Flora is pretty good. There's a product we use for people that have just been wiped out from major antibiotics called VLS-3 that's online, and there's a lot of stuff out there. For me, the take-home story with that is high dose and go for it. And people say, well, why do I need that many bugs? Well, in the old days when you would walk across along a river, stick your head in there and just drink, how much bacteria were you getting every day? When you'd pull a carrot out of the ground and just wipe it off and eat it, how much bacteria were you getting? We evolved with these good bugs, and there's a lot of science out there showing that a lot of our genetic expression and our ability to really enhance our coexistence symbiotically with the planet comes with our relationship with the bacteria that are natural, like the innate bacteria that come with the earth, right? And so, us Lysol wiping everything and dropping amoxicillin bombs on everything may have backfired in a lot of ways. And so, good bugs, high dose, go for it, guys. I have not seen a downside on that with your traditional patients. I mean, there's certain kinds of patients you got to be careful with the outgassing and all that, but unless you have some major kind of gut issue, always consult your doctor. Everything we're talking about here, consult with your doctor. We're not giving medical advice. We're saying these are the general things that tend to help, right?
Beautiful. Honey, I love it when you talk this way. It just makes me so happy. I want to add, though, that one of the things I've seen in my 20 years of taking care of people is that sometimes when they jump on the bandwagon a little too fast and they don't ramp up, they can have issues, especially if you're talking about taking probiotics. So what I encourage people to do is to take a dose of it and then to slowly ramp up, because if you get too much at once, sometimes it can give you diarrhea. It can also release, you can start to get rid of things like yeast, and you can actually have kind of a detox reaction, which can feel like the flu. So I just want people to be careful about that.
Sure.
Attune to the body and talk to your clinician about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, measured steps, work it into a lifestyle program. Don't just overwhelm your system with something new. So yeah, thanks for that. Everything in life has to be measured steps, and the taking things out of the lifestyle diet is absolutely critical as well. Sorry, the dogs are going crazy.
Doggies.
Yeah, exactly. It's great having dogs around.
Buster.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Buster. So listen. Sarah, I love this. I love what we're doing. I think that this is going to be a lot of fun, and we're just going to keep talking about stuff that's interesting. And if you're listening to this right now, and there's like something that you want us to talk about, that's like, hey, go back to that point. I really need to know more. Just put it. We're creating kind of our list of things that we're going to talk about over the next few months, and keep this going. So give us feedback, and we'd love to hear what you have to say about this as well.
Definitely. We want to hear where you agree with us, what lands with you, where you disagree. We just want to really encourage a dialogue around this. And I've got my list of all the things I want to talk about next. But the gut is really up. I think the gut's going to be at least one of the next 5, Pedram.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll put our list together, and we'll keep doing this. So I want to thank you. This is so fun. I know we live a few hundred miles apart, but I feel like we get to hang out doing this. And you're one of my favorite people, and I have so much fun with you. So this is great. Thank you,
Pedram. Ditto. Same right back to you. It's so great to be on the line with you. I can't wait to unpack more of the science and make it actionable for people. So get your organic mattress, okay? Watch vitality. Start your probiotic. Very important. Those are the action items. And your multivitamin.
Okay, so to deal with the endocrine disruptors, we need to know what we're talking about. So Hormone Cure, Sara Gottfried, coming out soon. Watch Vitality, the movie, and then eat well, avoid chemical toxins, buy an organic mattress, multivitamin, probiotic.
Maybe test your mercury.
Okay, what was the website again for that?
Mercout.com. MERCOUT.com. Mercout.
Perfect. You guys got your homework. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye.